Come back to Behind the Headlines. By this time next week, much of the Ozarks could be caught up on rain. In fact, some places will have had flash flooding, and some areas may need some more rain. But scientists expect more drought this year in parts of the Midwest and the Great Plains. Harvest Public Radio's Hector Alejandro Azrate covered this story and joins us from his post in mid-Missouri. And welcome back, Hector. I hope I said all of your names right.
You got it. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Okay, good to have you with us. So, pastures for grazing need spring rain. Planting season is starting up. If it's too dry now, what is the U.S. Drought Monitor calling for or expecting as a result?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, right now, some parts of the Midwest and Great Plains are experiencing warm temperatures and low precipitation, less rain, less snowfall. So they're looking at maybe drought conditions getting a little bit worse, mostly moderate to severe around the region. And if that doesn't change in the coming weeks, coming days, it could have a pretty big impact on ranchers and farmers, who need water to raise their livestock and to grow crops.
So what are they expecting kind of a long term in what they call the North Central region, and that includes 20 states and presumably Missouri as well?
Yeah, that does include Missouri, 20 states along from the Rockies to the Great Lakes. And these states are experiencing anywhere from moderate drought conditions or worse as of the latest report this month, compared to a year ago, it's actually an increase of 18%, and that's from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and its regional climate partners, which includes climatologists here in Missouri.
So they've already had really horrible flooding in the South earlier this year, and we've had snowstorms in other places and devastating wildfires out in California, and now there are fires in the Carolinas. So in the middle of the country, what are the expected continuing climate issues to be this year going through summer?
Yeah, so right now they're looking at, the recent warm, dry, windy weather to continue. I'm sure some folks have noticed maybe dirty rain, that's a result of dust blowing in from that, that dry wind coming through. But then there's also, there's been a colder than normal winter, which meant we got less snow and less rain. Which means that there's just some parts of where we're at where it's just really dry, and it's probably they're looking at it staying pretty consistent for now, especially along the Missouri River Basin.
So give us an example, like I know you've had the telescope on to do this report, an example like Kansas and Nebraska, which they seem much worse right now, are they, than they would normally be this time of year?
Well, it's interesting. I spoke to climatologists and experts, and this has been trending over the last few years. It's been pretty consistent. Missouri itself, I think, has been dealing with drought conditions for the last 3 years or so, maybe a little bit more. And I mean, for Nebraska, I spoke to one of the meteorologists there who works with agriculture at the University of Nebraska, and he told me that the last year have been pretty rough for folks, especially in the Nebraska Panhandle, where it's just been really dry, and right now about 75% of the state is experiencing drought conditions, and that's including extreme drought, which is higher than the moderate to severe. They're telling me that for farmers and ranchers, it's gonna be tough. Especially those who don't have irrigation. They need that water, otherwise they're going to get thin grazing lands, which is going to impact their cattle herds. And then in Kansas, you have parts of the central and western Kansas and other parts, right, that are experiencing this drought. And we know that Kansas, our neighbor, has a huge reliance on its agricultural industry. I mean, that's the ranchers there also need the rain, and so do the farmers. One thing that one of the spokesperson with the Kansas Farm Bureau told me was that rain makes grain, right? And so important right now down the line is what he said, to how things end up. And it's just what it's looking like. It's a little tough right now to say, but that's what it is.
So talk to us about the big picture short term for Missouri and the farmland. And also we should note here that Governor Keogh's drought alert has just ended.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. In October, former Missouri Governor Mike Parson actually signed an executive order declaring the drought alert for the entire state. up until March 31st. That's since passed, but there are still drought conditions in more than 20% of the state, according to the latest data. And I spoke to Zachary Leeser. He's the Missouri State climatologist and the director of the Missouri Climate Center at Mizzou. And he told me that this is pretty persistent. It hasn't gone away. We did get some recent rains and storms, and it looks like some parts of Missouri will also get some of that in the coming days. But, only time can tell if these drought conditions are going to improve or get worse. But right now, it's a waiting game for a lot of folks, is what it's looking like. And, of course, every Thursday, a new drought monitor comes out. So we'll see what they say, what the experts tell us about what's looking, what's coming up for us here in Missouri.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that too, Hector. Because before we go, it's like people who seriously watch their rain gauge at home or the backyard or out on the farm. Also, the drought monitor is something they can look up and see as well with the map, rainfall amounts, and what to expect.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm sure that farmers and ranchers, they're used to paying close attention to the weather. So this is just one other tool.
All right, we've been talking with Harvest Public Media's Hector Alejandro Arzaite. And Hector, thanks very much. We look forward to seeing more of your reports online and on social media. As you can see this conversation at KY3.com, also on our streaming segment and channels, and Roku, Fire Stick TV, and Apple TV+. Hector, thanks very much as always. We'll always look forward to next time.
Likewise. Thank you again.
All right.